In Bahrain, hundreds of Shia activists have taken to the streets to demand they are given equal rights by the Sunni monarchy, as well as the release of political prisoners. The government has been violently clamping down on protests for the past 18 months, with accusations of brutality by the regime. However, the kingdom has pledged to improve on its treatment of political activists and try to prevent violence against ethnic and religious communities. That's after criticism and recommendations from the UN human rights body. But as RT's Laura Smith now reports, Western leaders have effectively closed their eyes to what's happening in the country, with other concerns in the region.
But I think they also shine a light for the whole world on the nature of this conflict, on the oppression and brutality of the regime.
One day, no matter how long it takes, there will be a day of reckoning for this dreadful regime.
Up in arms about Syria, and they've put their money where their mouth is, giving £5 million in so-called non-lethal aid to those trying to oust President Assad. But less than 1,000 miles away in Bahrain, there's another human rights crisis ongoing, and on that, leaders remain conspicuously silent.
The regime has not spared any means of repression. Torture has not ceased at all. And that includes testimonies of people who were just released in the last day or two. Arbitrary detentions have not stopped. Of course, the use of sectarianism as a weapon is there, weaponizing tear gas. But more than that is the kidnapping. They would kidnap a few people from each village, say 3, 4, beat them up, torture them, not inside the torture chambers, but in farms, in what they call the youth houses.
Bahrain is home to a forgotten revolution, ignored by the international community, underreported in the media. Since February last year, there have been almost daily anti-government protests. In the resulting crackdown, around 100 have been killed, with 1,600 in jail, including 60 children and 4 of Bahrain's most prominent human rights activists. All that in a country of only 1.5 million. But the UK government says nothing.
It's a long-standing historical connection between Britain and Bahrain, which was in fact a colony until 1971. Secondly, there's the association with the US Fifth Fleet. There is the oil problem and there's the banking problem. In the long term, this is harmful to our interests because sooner or later, all the Gulf monarchies are going to disappear in a puff of smoke, and then the regimes that succeed them will not be friendly to a country which has aided their oppressors.
Far from being condemned, representatives of the Bahraini regime have been a common sight at the UK's major events this summer. King Hamad was invited to the Queen's Diamond Jubilee celebrations in May. His elder son visited David Cameron at Downing Street, and his younger son, who allegedly sanctioned the torture of dissident Bahraini athletes, was at the opening of London's Olympic Games.
But it goes further and deeper than that. Despite the brutal crackdown, between July and September last year, the UK sold £2.2 million worth of arms to the Bahraini regime. Shortly after that, the UK's most famous military training school accepted a £3 million donation from the King of Bahrain. And the Metropolitan Police's former Assistant Commissioner was appointed as an advisor on security to the regime, with no objections from the UK government.
Bahrain campaigners say it's ruining the government's credibility.
It's only when they stand up in public and say, we oppose this torture, we oppose these autocratic regimes, and we demand democracy, only then will the British government have any credibility whatsoever. And at this moment, it now has none.
The Bahraini opposition and their supporters aren't calling for intervention, but they do want the international community to condemn a regime that they say is at least as oppressive as the Syrian regime that Western powers are so desperate to get rid of. Laura Smith, RT, London.